Hello, everyone. Good morning, guys. I hope you had a chance to brew a coffee for yourself. So, during the next 30 minutes, we will try to share some interesting news updates. We will put some our own opinion on this news and updates. So, please do not hesitate to raise your questions or disagree. That's fine. That's totally fine. That's why we are here. Um, Yeah, so if you are the first time here, we are going to conduct such news and updates on a bi-weekly basis. So this time we are conducting this on English. So we will see how it goes. If you like this, we probably will proceed using English. Maybe we will switch back to Russian. We will see. Yeah, it depends on your feedbacks. Um, yeah, I think that's enough with the introductory words because we are limited in time. We wanted uh, to end in 30 minutes, and we will try to do that. Okay, okay. So I've just shared my screen, and you can see the list of updates that we want to discuss and share with you today. This is your list application. Very nice. If you didn't try it, you can use it. Now you know about it, and we will share this link with you, so you will be able to explore or this news and updates by yourself. Okay, let's start from the first one. Alexander, I am really happy that Microsoft Microsoft wrote this article, which is called "How Async Await Really Works in C Sharp," and I can explain why. Um, During my work, time to time, I participate in technical interviews, and there is a very limited amount of candidates who can really explain how async await works. The vast majority of them have serious gaps in async await understanding, and that's not surprise for me because this is pretty complicated. I mean, they from the consumer's perspective, async await is pretty straightforward. It's very nice. That's why it's so popular. It's very easy to use, and this feature was adopted by several programming languages. It's not only in C sharp, in JavaScript, we have some like that, in C++, probably in other languages as well. But from the implementation perspective, I mean, from the compiler perspective, this is not so easy. This is not as lightweight as it seemed to be. um, this article actually describes things from the beginning. It starts from the pattern that we had before async await. It was called something like begin, do things, and do things. Yeah, like this is illustrated here. That was very complicated pattern, and even in the beginning when Microsoft released async await, there was an API that could convert your patterns that these patterns begin do things and do things into like a async await pattern. There is, I think, this API is still in a .NET. Then it goes deeper on the compiler level. It explains that async await actually how the way how compiler handles async await code is pretty similar to the way how the compiler handles enumerable and the yield construction. Yeah, that's a lot of similarities here. Then there is an explanation about synchronization context, about a lot of actually different things that should provide you some understanding how async await works under the hood. Um, all the state machine things, a lot of this is a very long read, but very detailed, and I really recommend to spend some time on this article if you are not aware or you are not very confident in this area. This may explain a lot of things for you.
Yeah,
Very
and
nice article.
honestly, when first time I saw this article, I was kind of scared by the size of this article. It is super precise. It has a lot of information, and even if you are familiar with how async await works, I propose you to sit and carefully read it. It will be kind of useful for you, I suppose. Because look, this technology from Microsoft, I mean, these few words, async and await, it bring a bit of in affecting our .NET world, and not even .NET world,
Yeah,
different languages. So how long do we have this functionality? About
10,
10 years.
no, more than 10 years. I think they released this in maybe 2010 or so, so 13 probably.
Yeah, that's really cool, I suppose, and that's why we have to know how it works under the hood.
Yeah, 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 that's true.
Actually,
These guys,
you shouldn't
yeah,
be really scared about such articles,
right.
because if you see Stefan Taub as a creator of it, and if you see that your browser doesn't crash on open, you know that next few hours will be very interesting read. And actually, this after created he creates actually every release such a page about performance improvements in every .NET release. And also, as far remember, he created some similar article about 10 years ago, and it was
Hmm.
one of his first writes about this topic.
Yeah, he's very nice guy, very good, very talented engineer. Um, Actually, this article is a continuation of a series of articles related to the topic what is .NET and why you should choose it. So if you were 2 weeks ago on the same event with us, we discussed this article. If you hadn't had a chance to join us, please read this article as well. Very nice. And so, guys, what I else noticed here is that Microsoft is going to conduct uh, Azure Developers Conference for .NET developers. And if you press on a save the date, you will be navigated to this page with this event, and you can see all the topics. A lot of good speakers should be there. Scott Hanselman, very nice guy. Um, and you can see the here preliminary agenda. So also you can save the date, join this conference, and increase your Azure.NET skills. Do
I'd
not
recommend
hesitate.
them to put not Azure developers, but Azure developers, 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 and put Steve Ballmer as the background photo, if you remember that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember him. Yeah. Um, Funny. That's funny. Right. So let's move on. Another pretty interesting reading is related to um, web reliable web app patterns for .NET. So this is a kind of abbreviation RWA. What about what's in this article? Actually, first of all, I was really surprised that Microsoft also has this Azure Web well architected framework. If you are not, if you are familiar with AWS, AWS has the same principles for their cloud. It's also called Web well architected framework, and it has a set of pillars, which is reliability, security, cost optimization, operational excellence, and performance efficiency. So same for Microsoft, and here you can navigate to this well architected framework and explore to the dive how to achieve all these pillars. And back to this reliable web app patterns for .NET, what you can read about here, few things actually. It's about retry pattern. We probably all aware about that. Circuit breaker pattern, caching patterns, how you can achieve caching really easily. It also says that a lot of SDKs has built-in retry mechanisms or so. For example, here you can see that entity framework has built-in retry mechanism. Also, there is a statement about poly. You can use poly if you want to add additional reliability to your application, to all your communications. So really recommend to go through this article, at least really quickly, in order to get some basic understanding how to build the reliable web applications and why you should care that about that at all. I think, well, for right now we live in a microservice world, so having this, adapting all these reliable web app patterns is a must. It's not recommended; it's a must. It's a very big difference comparing to monolithic applications when you have a lot of distributed small applications that constantly communicate with each other.
makes sense actually, but I not fully understand why they call it web app patterns. All of them can be applied not only for web, for for any kind of application. It is good patterns to make your application more resilient, more
Yeah.
robust.
Yeah, well, I mean, so web, why web? Probably because when you have like web applications, you have like different flavors of networking communications, which may not be so reliable because of the transient issues or so. Um, for example, if you have an algorithm that is executed in a particular VM, then it's unlikely that something goes wrong, right? So while if you are interacting with another application sitting somewhere in the network or even in another place of the world, then
Hmm.
the chances that something goes wrong really increased.
Yeah, maybe
Probably that's why. But
hmm
I really surprised that they decided even to use the same wording, well architected framework, same for Azure.
Actually, they have a very good article related to cloud patterns, which sits near the well architecture framework, and I shared a link in the chat uh, describing it.
Okay, good. Thanks, Volodya. Okay, so the next one, I think, Alexander, this is your.
Yeah, I can briefly share it with you guys. I'll start sharing my screen, right?
Okay.
Boo, boo, boo. Where is the okay? So what is it? It is Azure Azure IOC Central, right? So it is super niche thing, but I suppose it will be useful for you to know that Azure have this kind of thing inside. What is it? It is a kind of central place to manage all your IoT devices. Why I decided to show it to you? Because it has internally absolutely all that you want to have to you manage amount of your device. Maybe I didn't use it in the production actually, but currently we are working on a project which is related to IoT, and I kind of familiar with the thing which is under the hood, the IoT devices, and I can say that it is almost that you want to have, right? What kind of useful feature do we have here? It is device template, and I suppose it is a killer feature internally, because what is it? Internally, you can describe your device by some specific language. It is a it looks like a JSON, but it has some specific semantic inside. I suppose it is some internal language in the Microsoft, right, to describe some features, some functionality of this device. But what is the most important here? By this file, you can describe all your device. You can, describe all kind of commands that device can handle or can send to the cloud. What is the response from the command? What is the device? What kind of property this device has? What kind of telemetry this device can send, and so on. Right? Based on this template which you created, you can uh, assign or create based on this template any amount of devices. For example, we can create a template for temperature sensor, right? And based on this template, we can create a device with a IoT temperature sensor device, which will communicate with the cloud. What else? We can have a dashboard to present some information from this device from group of devices for you can group manage all devices in the way which you want to manage them. The next interesting thing it is jobs. You can schedule any kind of jobs for this device. It can be one time job, can job by schedule, which is repeating after some time, right? Very powerful thing. You can schedule, for example, firmware update for a group of devices for any device or for any particular device. Apply some rules for device. I didn't create it, but you can do it. Actually, a lot of stuff you can do this. Maybe it will be not applicable for some customers, to fully use it inside, but you definitely have to know that Azure have this thing, and you can use it as a reference design for your system that you want to design. You can kind of steal some idea from here to implement your own functionality, and just to, it is just good example uh, how it should look like, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think this is a very nice topic because it's like real pleasure to see that .NET technologies, not only .NET, well, Microsoft related technologies are expanded in a different areas like AOT. So really,
Mhm.
really nice to see that.
Yeah, then they did actually super cool job because you can create your own device templates, but they already have a lot
Mm.
of and a lot of and a lot of predefined devices which you can use, from scratch, or use a base and use a base template and edit some in some way
Yeah,
that you want to. Yeah,
awesome,
this kind of thing. Yeah,
awesome,
that is it that I want to present here.
awesome. Thanks. Okay, so move next. Let's back to my screen.
Mhm.
So another topic that I wanted to share today is related to the library for DynamoDB, for consuming DynamoDB. Interesting thing that this is not official DynamoDB library provided from AWS. I think, guys, some of you had a chance to interact with DynamoDB. Probably vast majority of you used just official DynamoDB client from AWS SDK. And here I would like to advertise you to take a look at this library that is called Efficient DynamoDB. And why I'm doing this? Okay, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, if you used official SDK, you probably noticed that it has like high-level API and low-level API. Using low-level API is a really, really complicated thing. If you start using high level API, you probably may notice that some of the important features are not implemented there at all, while low level API allows you to do some things. For example, high level API of official DynamoDB client doesn't support transactional requests, while you can achieve transactions using low level API, but it would be very complicated queries, very complicated requests to the DynamoDB. So this client efficient DynamoDB has a very nice way to work with, um, for example, with transactions. Very nice, fluent way. Really pleasure to use it. Um, Same for other. Let's say you want to do some batches. Also, you have here Fluent API. Very nice, very comfortable to use. Also, few things that we noted while on our production project that we noted while we used sorry, not efficient, official DynamoDB client, where like official AWS provided DynamoDB client has some problems with memory management. For example, when we started using it in a Lambda environment, sometimes we had to increase the memory size allocated for this Lambda just because high-level API of AWS SDK consumed huge amount of memory. This efficient DynamoDB doesn't have these problems. And also they describe themselves, the authors, I mean, the authors of this library describe themselves as a high performance DynamoDB library. And I could confirm this works faster than official client provided by AWS. Fun thing that on one of the conferences that I attended, there was a speaker from AWS, and he even recommended to take a look at this library. So folks from AWS recommend to take a look at this library. It's really nice. The only disadvantages that I noted, sometimes you can see lacks of the documentation here. Probably that's not a huge problem. That's not a problem at all. And also the way how you pass the credentials to this client, it's a bit just different comparing to AWS SDK. So AWS SDK currently does this a little bit more efficient. So, but in general, if you need a high performant DynamoDB client that has an API that is better than official DynamoDB client, you can take a look at this.
Do
library.
they
Really
have
nice. And
benchmark results that we can
yes,
look at?
they do have benchmark results. If we go to GitHub, you can see here some benchmarks, and there is a I think if we go to test, no, probably not here. Probably it will be in SRC. Yeah, this is benchmarks. You can take a look at their benchmarks. They do have the benchmarks. Proves that it is fast. All
And then
right.
actually, it is very interesting situation when
Yeah.
third-party library better than library designed by our author of this technology.
Yeah, I agree.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. And I think the problem with the SDK for .NET, at least for AWS, is that the way how they implement this SDK, I think they have a core parts just generated from a kind of probably common language, or kind of there is a Java probably as a baseline, and then they kind of translated it somehow, the core parts, I mean core parts, into
Hmm.
.NET and other languages, and then they wrapped this translated code with like a better API, more .NET friendly API for .NET, let's say, more like
Hmm.
Python friendly for a Python. I think that's what happened, because if you like drill down into the SDK, you may notice some strange class names, some um, non-.NET friendly. Um, things.
Idiomatic Java, let's say,
Yes,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
core.
Let's say like that. I think that may bring some problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I agree. That's very interesting that third-party library, I mean non-official library, works faster and better than official client. Yeah, really surprising. But yeah, we actually, once again, we used this library in production. It has no real issues. We didn't face any issues. While we used official clients, we had some problems. Okay,
Yeah, let's continue.
yeah, let's
Take
continue.
control.
So
Yeah, Microsoft is continuing to work on preparation of .NET 8 release, and they publish results of work every month. On previous our meeting, we had reviewed results of preview 1, which was a result of 6 months of work, but this time we have a preview 2, which is just a result of 1 month of work. That's why it's much
smaller, yeah.
smaller than previous one, and but it still has some interesting details that they decided to like extend functionality of their old validation libraries and annotations, which additional extension library, not to extend like old one, but to build a new one on top of previous one. Probably they created it as a part of feedback from customers, which asked for such a functionality. And in .NET runtime and SDK, this time there is no so much interesting updates, but on ASP.NET Core part, we have update regarding Blazor Quick Grid component, which was a like experimental feature in .NET 7 and was shipped as like additional package. And it's still an additional package, but I believe by the time of release .NET 8, they might include it as a part of like main framework. What is a quick grid component is, I believe, very, very like requested feature from enterprise consumers and enterprise developers, because usually you want to display some data inside your websites, and Blazor is not an extension to this. And they reused experience from JavaScript libraries. There are a lot of them, and they built a quick grid component which uses like idiomatic Blazor functionality. And there is a special site with live samples, and we can see that there is a sample Razor uh, file content and CSS for this component, and we can see that it has pagination. It's pretty quick. We have samples for how to organize columns. We have samples how to without samples actually on the code. Yeah, the interesting part is that this component has integrated virtualizing capabilities, because for very, very huge tables, it might be a concern when it consumes a lot of memory, and we have a virtualizing component which under the hood does some magic to preserve this memory and release unused parts. Uh, Also, the interesting part is that they introduced like another mode of work for Blazor WebAssembly. It's called Jitterpreter.
Yeah, the very complicated word, so they
Yeah,
should change it.
Microsoft doesn't like to build in good naming for its products.
Yeah.
Uh, so you have Jitterpreter, which is something in between interpreter mode for .NET code in browser and between out compiled mode. It's it uses like best from both worlds, and they actually start to use it for IoT compiled mode as well, because IoT compiled mode still has possibility to fall back to interpreted mode, but interpreted mode is more than 30 times slower than compiled mode, and in places when it's still fallbacks, they see huge improvements in performance of
Hmm.
operations or basic operations like string or JSON operations. Also, they introduced some, in this release, they decided to pay attention to analyzers for the minimal API for controllers. It can help you to build or to get faster feedback when you develop something, because you might like attribute some method with two from body attributes and then get confused when it doesn't work as you expect. So they provide a faster feedback loop for you. Also, they introduce some resettable object in object pool package, which can help you to build your own pullable objects. And they put this in ASP.NET Core updates, I suppose, because ASP.NET Core is a like uh, main consumer of such a functionality might be.
Hmm.
And yeah, some performance improvements. I believe we need to wait for wrap up from Stefan Taub at release of .NET 8 to get more
They're
details, more
his huge,
details.
huge
Yeah,
articles, right?
Five
yeah,
screen
They're really
article.
happy to see Quick Grid almost ready for production, because I think that's the first component that you need when you start building any application, because can't imagine any application without proper grid functionality, and really nice to have it.
yeah, definitely. And last part, to be pretty quick, is that in EF-Core preview 2, they added JSON column support for SQLite uh, provider, and they described it as how it supports actually, because SQLite has support for JSON set operations, which they used as a underlying uh, query type, and something about hierarchy ID from SQL Server that they decided to integrate as um, EF-Core 8. I'm not sure what it is about and how to use it actually in production, but maybe it might be a requested feature by customers who rely heavily on SQL Server specific functionality inside. And that's pretty much it from my side.
That's good. We did it. Okay, folks. Thanks everyone. Hope you enjoyed this format and apply. Okay. Okay. So Volga answered some. Hope you enjoyed this format and hope you join us next time. Please share your feedbacks, share your thoughts, and if you wanted to participate in these updates as a speaker, probably also reach out to us. Always welcome. That's it.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.